If you're a business owner who's burnt out, overwhelmed, and working way more hours than you know you should, keep watching because in this video, I'm gonna show you how to buy back an entire workday by delegating or deleting 6 to 8 hours of time-wasting activities. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Deiss, and as a serial entrepreneur with 17 startups and 4 exits under my belt, I know what it's like to take on way too much and wind up with more work than week at the end of the work week. What I'm gonna show you now is a simple framework that I developed for myself and my leadership team to know which tasks I should hold on to and which ones I should let go. Let's get started. So the big core principle that you need to keep in mind through all this is that busy does not equal productive. And I think that's really important because when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll talk about how busy they are. And some of the things, if I know them well enough, I'll sometimes ask, well, that's great. I can ask you a question. What is the product of your activity? And I like to ask it that way because to me, that is the definition of productive. There is product to your activity. Your activity creates a product. And very often the busyness doesn't actually produce anything. It doesn't create anything. It simply, well, is just busy. So a question I want to ask you, and I really want you to think about this, is how many hours do you work in an average week? Maybe it's 40, maybe it's 60, maybe it's 80, maybe it's 100, whatever the number is, I want you to have it in your head. And I want you to keep that number in your head while I ask you this next question, which is how many truly productive hours do you work on average per day and per week? So let's say you're working 60-hour weeks. How many of those hours in that week are actually productive? How many are productive in a given day? I actually polled my audience, some of my followers out there on Twitter, and I asked them this question: how many truly productive hours of work do you average in a day? And these were the results. 20% said that they get more than 5. Almost 50% said they were 3 to 4, and 25% said it was 1 to 2. 6% said it was less than 1. Frankly, I think most of the 20% are lying. Most of the entrepreneurs that I work with, whether they're our portfolio company CEOs or our clients, definitely get way less than 5 hours of productive time every single day. So we want to change that. We want to eliminate that waste of time. We want to make sure that when you show up each day, you're doing productive work so that you can either get more done or you can take more time off. So let's talk about the step-by-steps of how we do that. All right, so let's get into the step-by-step of how to buy more time back for you each and every day. Let's start with step 1, which is to do task list brain dump. This one is really, really simple. What I want you to do is I want you to start with your existing to-do list if you have one, and then also move on to your calendar. Look at the different appointments that you have and the to-dos that you put on your calendar. Check your inbox, check your Slack, check your text messages, check any of the project management tools. Look at all the things that didn't get done last week, last month, last quarter. And what I want you to do when you go and open up all of these different places where tasks and ideas and to-dos land, I want you just to make a laundry list of them. Do a complete and comprehensive task list brain dump. When I did this with one of the executives on my team, this is what they said. They're like, well, I do content strategy and content calendar creation, writing and editing of the weekly newsletter, assigning and reviewing blog content, assigning and reviewing social content, design, planning and review, producing and editing the podcast, writing content, sourcing and training writers, dealing with sponsored content, general leadership and management. You get the idea. This person was completely and totally overwhelmed, so I had him just take a couple of minutes and do this task list brain dump, and so I would like for you to do that as well right now. Take just a couple of minutes and do the brain dump. If you need to pause this video, that's totally fine as well. Now, once you've done your task list brain dump, you can move on to step 2, which is to organize and prioritize. And the way that we go about organizing and prioritizing is utilizing a simple tool or framework that we call the critical task matrix. So what I want you to do is find a whiteboard. You can also do this on a sheet of paper, but I want you to basically just draw an X and a Y axis, all right? So you know what it looks like. And then on the X axis, I want you to write low ability and high ability on the left and on the right, and then at the bottom, low impact and high impact. What we're doing with this critical task matrix is we are organizing, we are prioritizing our different tasks based on what are those tasks where they're really, really high impact and also we're really, really good at, we've got high ability, versus what are the ones that are maybe low impact and, you know, maybe we don't have as much ability or maybe we do, but it's still fairly low impact. These are the ways that I want you to think and prioritize. It's not just, am I good at it? Because maybe you're good at it, but you don't need to be doing it. And it's not just, oh, this is really important, this is really high impact. Okay, but if it's important and it's high impact, but you kind of suck at it, well, good chance that you shouldn't be doing that either. So go out there. What I like to do, you know me, if you've been watching my stuff, you know I love Post-it notes. I like to get a whiteboard, draw this up. I get one Post-it note for each task and I go and plot them all over the place. Now, if you don't want to use Post-it notes, you can also use a sheet of paper. when I asked my team member to do this, this is what she returned and what she came up with. So we're just gonna go back to the critical task matrix, get them all plotted, and once you've done that, we can then begin to organize and prioritize these tasks based on their respective categories. So if we think about something that is both high impact and high ability, this is what we refer to as the flow zone. If something is high impact, that means that you get a lot of reward out of doing it, because when you do it, the results show up. Maybe the results come in the form of praise, maybe the results come in the form of, cash in your bank account, whatever it is. If it's high impact, it's high reward. And if it's high ability and you're good doing it, that is that flow zone work. These are all the things that we probably want to keep doing. Now, on the other end of that spectrum, we've got low impact, low ability. This is the drudgery zone, okay? These are the things that we don't like doing, and even when we're done with them, we're still not happy that we did it. These are the things that anything down in this zone we want to defer or we want to just delete, and we'll talk about how to do that in just a second. Then you've got, on the low impact but high ability, the menial zone. So these are things that you're really, really, really good at, but probably shouldn't be doing because they're so low impact. This might be things like checking your email, taking stuff to the dry cleaner. You get the idea, all right? Sure, you're good at it, but kind of you're good at it because anybody could be good at it, because it's really just not that hard, because it's a menial task, which is why it's in the menial zone. All right, then when we get over to the upper left-hand side of the quadrant, you have high impact and low ability, and this is the captive zone. And we call it the captive zone because this is where you really feel trapped. These are all those tasks that you feel like you need to do because they are really, really important, but at the end of the day, you're not very good at it and you probably don't enjoy it very much. So this is the captive zone. Now, if you look, we've got a green zone. Green means go. We got a red zone. Red means stop, and we've got some yellow zones, and yellow definitely means pause, warning, we need to do something about this. So take some time. You've done your task list brain dump. Now it's time to get out there and begin to organize them based on the critical task matrix and begin to figure out which zone each of your tasks falls into. Once you've done that, you can move on to step 3. Step 3 is my favorite one. In step 3, I want you to run what we refer to as a stop test. And a stop test is for everything that you see down there in the drudgery zone. This is where you agree to simply just stop doing something for 30 days and just see if anyone misses it if it's gone. I cannot tell you how many times, I kept doing something because I just felt like it was really, really important. And then life happened, the world happened. I wasn't able to do that thing, and literally nobody missed it, right? Literally nobody missed it. I realized, oh my God, I could have stopped doing this, so many times in the past. And this happens with my team members all the time. And I bet it happens with your team members as well. You go to them and you say, hey, this thing over here, it's pretty low impact. You don't need to do it anymore. And they're like, oh no, it's really, really important. And they don't want to give it up because oftentimes people are worried that if they give up certain tasks that, that might be seen that they're not as valuable in the company. Or sometimes we begin to take on too much identity when it comes to our tasks. I'm known as somebody who does this thing. I remember we had somebody in our company and they really took on this task of writing a newsletter for this one particular segment of our audience. And when we looked at it, the newsletter engagement was very, very low. The opens were non-existent. The click-throughs were even less, and it kind of just, the impact was nothing. And when I asked the person, hey, do you like doing this? They're like, no, it's really hard. It's a lot of work. I got to do a lot of writing. It's not really my thing. It's like, okay, well, good news. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. They're like, oh, I can't stop doing it. They kind of freaked out. And so what I found is that to just stop something cold turkey, oftentimes people really struggle to do that. So instead of just stopping it completely, what we're going to do is we're going to run a stop test. We're not going to say we're going to quit doing it forever. We're simply going to say for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, for the next 30 days, let's stop doing it and let's see if anybody notices. With this particular team member, I said, hey, let's just see what happens if we don't email this newsletter out for a month. It's a weekly newsletter. You can take the next 4 weeks off. If we get a lot of feedback from anybody, if people email in, if they reply saying, hey, what happened to the newsletter? I missed my newsletter. What's going on? Then we can talk about what it looks like to start going again. But can we make a deal that if nobody emails in, if nobody seems to notice, that we can just call it done? The person agreed. Exactly 0 people noticed that it was missing. We stopped doing it. We could buy back a lot of that person's time. So I want you to think about it right now. What are some of those tasks in the drudgery zone that not only should you not be doing them, but maybe nobody needs to do them? What are those tasks that you can delete completely or that you can defer in a stop test? Step 4 is to delegate the menial. We are now in the lower right-hand section of this matrix. And so what we want to do here is, if it is truly a menial task, if it is truly low impact, but you're good at it, which means other people could and should be good at it, then this is probably the time to delegate it to another member of your team, maybe a virtual assistant, almost immediately. And the nice thing about menial tasks is they usually don't require much documentation on your part. So this doesn't have to be some big, massive, formal, I need to cross-train you in this, important critical activity. activity? No. You could probably just say to them, hey, I'm currently spending a lot of time on this. It's not the best use of my time. I feel like it's something that you could really help me out with. So starting today, I need you to do it. Here it is. If you have any questions, let me know. So with menial tasks, we delegate. We don't need to spend a lot of time documenting because again, they're menial tasks. All right, and now we come to step 5, where you need to document and delegate the captive task. So now we are in that upper left-hand quadrant. And in this particular zone, the stakes are a little bit higher. We're talking about higher impact tasks where you really don't know quite as much. So we can't simply just delegate it. We can't simply just hand it off to somebody else and say, good luck. We also don't necessarily want to run a stop test on these things because again, they're high impact. They're pretty important. We want to make sure that we keep doing those things. So in this case, we are going to need to do some documentation. Now, I've talked about in some other videos when we build out operating systems, this is really going to start with mapping your value engines because the value engines are going to show up. If it's a high impact task, it's going to appear somewhere in a value engine. And if it appears in a value engine, then it should probably be documented as a playbook. Again, talked about that in another video. We can link up to that somewhere in the comments, but that really is the step and the stage to beginning to hand off anything that's in that captive zone. And this is true not only for you, but it's also true for members of your team. So if you want to delegate captive zone tasks and activities, we need to document before we delegate. In other words, we need to systemize before we put the people in place to do it. And now we come to the 6th step, which is really just to repeat what you have been doing until you reach 8 hours. Now, there's a really good chance, depending on how kind of discombobulated your schedule and activities are, that just through stop tests and delegation of the menial, that just that will buy you back an entire day. But what we found with the executives that we work with is that usually it's a combination of all three, of stop tests, it's a combination of delegating the menial, and it's a combination of documenting and then ultimately delegating those captive tasks. Either way, set it as a goal to keep doing this until you free up 8 hours. Once you freed up 8 hours, congratulations, you've bought yourself back an entire work day. And that was the goal of this entire exercise after all, wasn't it? All right, so this video showed you how to buy back an entire day, but what if you could buy back an entire week? Well, that is exactly what Scalable Operating System lets you do. So in the next video that I want you to watch, we're gonna cover that in depth. We'll also go a bit into how do you go about creating those value engine maps, how do you go about creating those playbooks so that you can begin to delegate those truly critical tasks. All that's covered in the other video. So if you wanna watch more, if you wanna buy back even more time, be sure to check that one out, and I'll see you over there.